Thiel Fellowship, very similar to this fellowship where having a group of entrepreneurs really helps you excel. You can get that same thing in a million different ways. It's because no one else makes money when you bootstrap, so no one will tell you about it. I won $116,000 from business competitions and then got the Thiel Fellowship, which was $100,000. Just you can use it on whatever you want. I didn't pay myself for 3 years, and that wasn't because the company wasn't cash flowing. And so he invented this cool thing, literally sold his company to EpiPen so they could keep selling stupid tubes. And then he just had like hundreds of millions of dollars. Peter Thiel selects students and gives them $200,000 to not engage in employment or school for 2 years. Wanted any context on the Thiel Fellowship, I could give it because it is a really good opportunity. And then as like a mini background, I kind of went the exact opposite funding route / like commercial route as Alan. I am in like medical adjacent retail. So I make adhesives for glucose monitors. I made an outpatient adhesive that allowed medical devices to be worn for 2 to 4 weeks instead of 3 to 5 days. And so my commercial thing is like, I'd rather sell a $40 worth of product to 1 million people, and I do, instead of getting one person to pay me $40 million. And then I also, instead of getting investors, I did a business competition. So if you guys are engaging with business competitions, at school and things, yeah, I actually won every business competition I entered. So if you need advice, I'm like really good at it. But I won $116,000 from business competitions and then got the Thiel Fellowship, which was $100,000. Just you can use it on whatever you want. Now it's $200,000. And then I just started my company from there and never needed investors. So it's quite the opposite. And then I did not pay myself for 3 years and then paid myself $70 an hour, thought I was cool. And then like the year after that, I was taking home like $600,000. And I was like, what did I do to like, it was just like a whole weird chaotic thing. But so that's like mini background. And I'm a solo founder, which I wish I had a co-founder. That'd be so fun. I have to make all the decisions and everything is always my fault. So love that. Yeah, but the Thiel Fellowship is very cool, very SF relevant, social entrepreneurship relevant. A tech founder, Peter Thiel, selects students, anyone under the age of 23, so if you're over 23, I'm so sorry, and gives them $200,000 to not engage in employment or school for 2 years and to just build whatever it is they're building. And the biggest utility for me with the Thiel Fellowship wasn't the money, it was actually the network. So my year in 2018, which again makes me feel old compared to you guys, I was kind of like put into this fellowship with the 20 smartest kids, so says a billionaire, you know, all in one room. And I went from having 2 friends to having 22 friends. So that was really fun. But yeah, very similar to this fellowship where having a group of entrepreneurs really helps you excel. We talk about everything from people to talk about fundraising with, or if you have to fire someone, or if you have to hire a general counsel, having a group of people your age who are asking the same questions is very useful. And then having people in the Thiel Fellowship network review your work and give you advice is like immeasurable amounts of value. They just announced the new Thiel Fellow class 2 days ago, which is insane. So now I can publicly say things. But this year they only selected 12, which is insanely competitive. But Peter Thiel himself is now interviewing, which is crazy. So the entire thing is just like an insane opportunity. And I'm sure there's other things like it. I can also speak about starting a company from the bootstrap side or the direct-to-consumer side, which is not very techy. I can also talk about the Thiel Fellowship or business competitions if you're looking on that side of the wall for funding. Yes, Eric.
So you want to move back to San Francisco? So
yeah.
You're looking at the Thiel Fellowship, Y Combinator.
Yeah.
So what would be like your preference?
I've only done the Thiel Fellowship. Y Combinator is really great because I think they cast a wide net. There's also another Y Combinator adjacent program, which also takes a new class every 3 months. It's called HF0. I know people who've gotten into HF0 and can speak to it. I haven't personally, but HF0, I think they give you $1 million, which is more than YC, and they all live together in a house for 3 months. But it's very, very similar to YC, and I think I would almost say better. I think better resourced, but I guess I can't say that. I think HF0 is very. They turn out a lot of successful companies, which is cool, and because they live together, it's like an insanely high-paced environment. I also anecdotally call it founder jail because people who are in it never leave because they're always working. But it's cool, like productive and focused. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can.
So I have like two questions. The first one is just pure curiosity because the results, as you said, just came out.
Yeah.
And there were like a guy who is 14, one is 15, and another who is 16. And Daniel, I think so, is the girl responsible for the program.
Yeah.
Said that now she wants like 12-year-olds. So how do you? There were any cases of these on your batch, and if so, how does?
Yeah, there was no cases of young founders on my batch. This might be a strategic test this year. I cannot speak on the behalf of the fellowship. I don't know their incentives. I don't know why they do what they do. I know that they did skew younger in the early years, and it was, it's always more difficult to find young geniuses and make sure that they can evolve into the adult world. And so there were many, many years, my year included, where most people were actually at that age 23 cutoff. And there was many, many examples of people that interviewed, like Claire Coder's a fellow who did this. I'm not great with the names of everyone, but many people, Ben Stern has done this, people who interviewed many years in a row and just got it when they were 23 because they kind of get to know you and get to know your trajectory. I think from what I have heard, the Thiel Fellowship always does want to find those young geniuses, but it's quite difficult. And so they often do end up giving the fellowship to people who are at the age cutoff who they've gotten to know over the years, because my speculation and my perspective is because once you're a Thiel Fellow, you're always a Thiel Fellow. They really like to know that they've seen someone's trajectory. I guess my personal advice, that again does not represent the opinions of the Thiel Fellowship, is I applied I first applied in July, and I filled out everything, said what I was building, but I said what I was building and what I was going to accomplish in the next 3 months. And then I sent another application 3 months later and told them that I had accomplished that and what I was doing next, because I had noticed this pattern of, okay, they interview someone 1 year, they interview them again. And so I think showing them your trajectory and showing them your growth path would set you apart competitively. So I can tell you like how I thought about it competitively as someone who applied, because there are some people who accomplish something really great, let's say when they're 18, 19, 20, 21, and then they try to like live off of those accolades forever. I personally think, from what I've seen in Thiel Fellows, is there are people who are like always building and always applying their genius in a lot of different places. And so I think if you show them your trajectory and show them your diversity of interests, I think you increase your odds a lot. Whereas just like hyper fixating on one application point in time or one area of your own expertise, I think they're kind of investing in like the core of the person and their ability to like build and create and things like that. Yeah, this year's very unique. Again, like no one thought it was going to be just 12 people, even the people who are interviewing, which really speaks, like I know some people who were asking the questions at the interviews. So the Thiel Fellowship is very closed doors about like how and what their strategy is, which is, I think, what makes them like unique and special compared to other programs. But yeah, I wish I knew more. I think a lot of people do, but it's kind of cool. I'll just tell you what I observed. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question, which is in the application, in order to highlight the things that you did in the past, mainly country focused. I'm from Portugal, and I did a lot of things in Portugal.
Yeah.
How do you think it's the best to place those things? Like, should we do like show
timelines of grant programs and like the amount of like paperwork? I was a little bit lazy. But yeah, I didn't work with any of that. Yeah, wish I could speak more to it, but not my area of expertise. Oh. Yes, tips on competitions, super, super easy. So pitch competitions, I never play games I can't win or don't think I'm going to win. So I would always do heavy research on who the competitions are. And competitions are so much easier to win in their first year of existence. So like, you know, colleges would be like, "Oh, we're going to do this competition for the first time." Not a lot of people know about it. Very like like very small competitive field. When I was a freshman, I entered in things that were just for my college year. When I was a senior, I entered into competitions that were like all adults because I had that little like, oh, she's young, we want to see her grow. Yay. Because they're also doing it for PR. Like you have to think about that. You have to think about like why are they selecting the winner? Like they're comparing apples to oranges. Like one time it was like my company versus a bike helmet company. It's like they're in like completely different spaces. Also, pitch competitions, there's always a limited time. I would always plan my presentation to be 1 to 2 minutes under time because everyone else would talk so fast. And if they messed up, they'd freak out and it's just viscerally uncomfortable. And for me, I could talk really slow. And if like I skipped something or wanted to elaborate or like react to the audience, I'd have 2 extra minutes at the end. Also, sometimes if you have 2 extra minutes at the end, they'll give you 2 extra minutes of Q&A to stay in their little time blocking. And people don't select the winners based on whose idea they think is the best. They select the winners based on who they have the least amount of uncertainties about. So I would also then people lose points in the judge's eyes if they ask a question that they feel like you're not prepared to answer. So I would seed questions in my presentation and like half mention like something about international markets or half mention something about CPT code reimbursements on the clinical side. And then in the Q&A, surprise, surprise, they'd ask me about like when I plan to expand into foreign markets or like how I plan to commercialize on the medical side. And I'd have like a slide prepared in my appendix. So they'd ask me a question, click, click, click. I have a whole visual to answer your question. And they're like, wow, she knows everything. And I'm like, no, I just manipulated you to ask that exact question. And so like those kind of things really helped me look very put together compared to the other people who might not have been as prepared. And I did constantly have a track record. So a lot of people go to pitch competitions thinking it's an idea competition. So when I went into the competition and said, like, I've already prototyped this, I've already talked to like 4,000 customers, and the number went up every time. So the first time it was like, I've talked to 4,000 people. And the next time it was like, I've talked to 20,000 people. And I had actual physical work executed. You'd be surprised how many people who are like, I Googled some stuff and like this would be pretty cool. And so like I always had a competitive advantage against them. So yeah, if anyone ever has a pitch deck or like a like speech that they want me to audit, that's like I'm good at that. So yeah.
I wanted to bring my experience as well because I've done some pitching competitions.
Yeah.
And it's what you said, also what we took advantage of, especially because the thing is, I did them in Spain and in some countries in Europe.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was like the local ones, and then that's like you scale up until the final in the country where you
Yeah.
do the best. And on the regional ones, you found like really good companies that they had like potential as well, like good type of business, but not scalable. And they struggled a lot on what you were saying on the presentation. I mean, the idea is good, but they were not being able to structure it in a way that you could show. Even if they had 1 million revenue.
Yeah.
And we came as the underdog ones, like from the squad, no one knew us, and with a huge scalability. So it was even better having less revenue and a huge scalability.
Yeah, because your potential.
Also, what you said, like manipulate the pitch, so the questions, you knew which questions they were going to ask.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, then when we went to the finals of the country, so we were top 8 in Spain, we lost, but the thing is that we knew that the jury, like the people that were waiting the pitches, in the end they were related to the biotech sector.
Yeah.
That day to the Congress there was a big company, well, AstraZeneca was coming to the Congress, and who won in the end? The biotech company that does detect for cancer,
Yeah.
So in the end, well, we already knew that, so we went with our mentality. Like,
Yeah. That's true. Like the whole like entering and knowing you can win. The winning part doesn't have to be winning the whole competition because you guys got like you're saying you got in front of the people you wanted to get in front of. Yeah, exactly. So if you can go into a competition knowing how you'll win, that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, so what the mindset that we had, it was, okay, what do I want to get out of this competition rather winning? Because
Yeah.
That's not the option. So there are investors that want to just put the foot in the door.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, getting influencer could also be like there was a competition I did that I still won, but the competition was structured where you got 2 mentors like just for free, just because you were competing. And I was like, yeah, I want these people auditing my company and like telling me what to work on for free. And so, yeah, I'd look at like how they resource their competitors. Because a lot of times for students and young people, there's a lot of people who want to help you. And then also, unrelated, if a lot of people want to help young people and some people want to help young people, but they're super unqualified to give you advice. So anytime you take a meeting, like when I was young, I would just take a meeting with anyone. I'm like, oh my gosh, you want to talk to me? Yay. Like it's just so silly. And so when you're meeting with anyone, similar to his mindset on business competitions, make sure you know like how you want that person to help you, whether it's like an intro or like giving you direct feedback on something because they're a content expert. And if you go to a meeting and they're just like off in la la land talking about something completely like separate, like know how to leave. Because I've been to meetings where people are like, oh, I just want to hear your story and like talk to a young founder. And I'm like, oh no, I have to leave. Like, yeah. So just be careful about your time when you're in this like network zone. And like don't enter business competitions that you don't think you can win. Like when I was on my like 8 business competition winning streak, people would send me anything. They'd be like, oh, did you know that the NFL is hosting a business competition for like anything vaguely athletic? Like you could do the angle that athletes wear your product. And I'm like, yeah, but like Nike doesn't they just don't care about like this niche. And so you kind of have to not play games that are a waste of your time. But yeah, actually, and that's the same thing with the Thiel Fellowship. Even if you don't get the Thiel Fellowship, a lot of the interview process and like writing out the answers to your questions and stuff can be very useful. And a lot of times, if you message people in the Thiel network and be like, oh, I'm interviewing, can you review what I'm working on? Like, just getting that feedback is always a net win. So, yeah. Oh, yes.
I have a quick question regarding bootstrapping.
Yes,
Completely-
bootstrapping,
completely different
my
now, if you don't
fave.
mind.
Yeah.
Because we've heard a lot of talks about VCs.
Of
which
course,
bootstrap,
because
etc.
no one else makes money when you bootstrap, so no one will tell you about it.
Exactly. So I want
Yeah.
to hear from you.
Yeah.
How obviously you get all the capital, you get all of the decision rights, and etc. How many years did it take for you to be profitable? How many?
Oh,
And etc.
profitable. I mean, we were cash flowing for like immediately because I prototyped a very like cheap prototype and people still paid for it because no one was filling the need. I'm like, wow, if you're able to pay me money for this, then this is a great business. But I didn't pay myself for 3 years, but I was also a student. So I feel like if I was working on it full time, I would have been able to scale that up. But also with physical products, it was a cash flow thing. So by the time I paid myself, like we were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. But it was like we were making $100,000, but then I had to like put like all of it back into inventory because we were tripling volume like on the month early on because you go from like 200 customers to 2,000 customers. That's like quite the jump when you're making a physical product, which no one in tech has to worry about. So I don't want to hear any problems about hiring developers. Lame. But yeah, I didn't pay myself for 3 years. And that wasn't because the company wasn't cash flowing. It was because of the super fun cash flow problem that is physical products and the fact that I never did debt financing. It was literally just like, okay, I will make $1,000 and then invest that. It was literally like the most cliche. And then I make 5,000 and then I buy more inventory. It was literally like the kid on the lemonade stand being like, now I can buy more lemonade. Yeah, it was like the most basic thing. But that being said, like it was just a different game. It was like it was a little bit slower to grow, but I would like it was a very non-competitive space because like I said, the big players did not want to play. So I was able to have that like slow scale up. You have to know what the playing field that you're playing in is. Like the reason why some people raise is because when Alan talks about either like succeeding or just being dead, it's like sometimes when you play in big markets, you have like if you don't get to the top, a big company is going to eat you. So you have to know who could eat you. Like him talking about like, oh, if the oil companies were to go after me, well, they might acquire me. And like, because I've seen it happen. There's also An unrelated story. My friend made a, this is actually really sad. So you know how EpiPens kind of suck? Like they're kind of like a giant tube with like 6 cents of epinephrine, and like they don't fit in your pockets, they expire, they cost like $200. Well, that is what we call a monopoly from a company with a lot of money. And so my friend created something called Adrenacard, which was like similarly could stop anaphylaxia, and it was like as thin as a credit card. You could put it in your pocket, you could put it in your wallet. And he looked at all the times that EpiPen had sued people who tried to create a competitor. And he's like, well, if I just play the game enough to get bought out and not sued into oblivion, then I'm making money. And so he invented this cool thing, literally sold his company to EpiPen so they could keep selling stupid tubes. And then he just had like hundreds of millions of dollars and went into manufacturing. So like you kind of have to know like what game you're playing so that you win and you don't get eaten. And so my game that I was playing was no big companies were going to eat me. There was no incentive at all. And so I just got to play my little snail game and just like slowly walk my way up to the cash flow ladder of just having a successful company in my bubble. But there's a lot of industries where you can't do that. So it's like just know the game that you're playing. Yeah. Yes.
Can I ask you a bit more about it will be a rather big question.
Yes, yes.
If I can ask you a bit more about your product, and
Yes.
also, as I know, there are some like different types of medical products.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
depending on how invasive. They
Yes,
are.
yeah. Mine's a class 1 non-invasive, but I know things about invasive products too because I distribute invasive products. So
And also, yeah, regarding the regulations, and if you've expanded to other markets, the
Yeah.
regulations are different.
yeah, Europe is so much paperwork.
Okay. But you are currently in different markets. Already.
Yeah. We sell in 72 different countries, and it's you kind of have to like again know the atmosphere in each. Yeah, some of them you do and some of them you don't. Some of them like a grandfather in from one country to another. But sorry, what was the question overall of
I
like?
think the first part was more about the product. If
Mhm.
you could tell a bit more, maybe I haven't heard more.
Yeah, just like what is the product?
Yeah.
Yeah. So outpatient devices like glucose monitors are worn by like millions of people in the US and abroad. And they were only being worn for 3 to 5 days, even though like the skin cycle is 28 days. So realistically, with the exception of pumps and anything with tubes, which have to be switched every 3 days to prevent scarring, these devices could stay on longer. But no big company was incentivized to keep them on longer or even develop in that space. And then you look at companies like 3M, which is now Solventum, who invent like every single adhesive you see anywhere, both in like, manufacturing and inpatient. They were building a lot of tapes for clinics, which are usually you're only in hospital for like 2 or 3 days. People are usually old or sick, so they're very light. And so I built a material that was a long wear, so it had more of an aggressive acrylate, which is the sticky stuff. And then I built like a polymer web so that most Band-Aids don't fall off because the material isn't strong enough. They fall off because they roll up on the edges. So if you made something thin that moved in an omnidirectional way, you could prevent it rolling up on the edges or lifting. And so a lot of my competitors will build something that's like a woven material, which only stretches in 2 directions. They worked with like all the wrong polymers that only stretch certain ways or don't stretch enough. So if you like twist your arm, it doesn't move like skin, and so it just lifts up. Insane that it's been 10 years and no one's built something like with the equivalent, which is just ridiculous because adhesives are not that complicated, I think. But yeah, so I just built something that could stay on skin for on test like 21 days, and then we sold it into the market as like a 14-day wear. And yeah, and now because people wear them for 14 days, I got to invent inks that also do that because a lot of inks will congeal to itself, and so if it stretches, they'll just flake off. And also like going 14 days through showers is really hard with inks, so I developed a new inks process as well. So now I kind of run a design company, and I get to be like, what are we selling? Cow print, Like, I think our bestseller right now, it's something silly. Yeah. And for the longest time, our bestseller was this galaxy print, which if any of you remember galaxy print leggings, they're ugly. And so people just like whatever they like. And so it's a really interesting thing to be like, what are hundreds of thousands of people choosing to put on their bodies for 2 weeks across the world? And it's just interesting. But yeah, so the medical stuff, all of my significant research in material science was like 8 years ago. And since then, I have been a business person. So yeah, that's been fun. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
When you get selected to the Thiel Fellowship, what does the program really consist of?
The program is very light, which I like. There's no programming because Peter Thiel will say, like, don't teach an entrepreneur how to build a business because you take away the opportunity for them to invent a better way. And so they literally would just fly us all out to see each other once or twice a year. And my year specifically, I had to jump on a call with the manager of the fellows once a week for the first year, and then I think the second year every other week. And she just pretty much said, no, once a month. And she'd be like, what are you building? What are your like growth stats like just for their internal metrics? And then do you need anything? Therapy, a hug, like, there's just like a sanity check. And then whatever we built on top of that, like during the pandemic, we had little like secret calls of like, who knows things, like what's happening. And then like we host a lot of, one of the Thiel Fellows hosts a giant Thiel Fellow reunion in Miami every year. I host a ski trip every year. So like we see each other around, but like official, and again, I don't know what their plans are. So I can only say like my year, they would bring us all together once a year with our class and the class above and below us. What they plan to do now, who's to say? Yeah, I don't even know. Like you couldn't get it out of me because I don't know. So, but I know they have a new director as of like a year and a half ago, and he's cool. So, yeah.
I heard that in the early days of the fellowship, many Thiel fellows were criticized a lot for dropping out of school.
Yeah, I
Did that
dropped out of
happen to
school.
you?
Did that happen to me?
You just-
No, I chose to drop out of school. I was going to drop out of school anyways, though, because I studied mechanical engineering and entrepreneurship. So I took all the capstone classes for entrepreneurship so I could learn like contract negotiations, like refined pitch deck stuff. If I wanted to get a degree in entrepreneurship, I would have had to take marketing 101, which was not going to happen. And then for mechanical engineering, I did all of the engineering graphics and design, a lot of like the prototyping classes, and I did not take fluid dynamics, multivariable calculus, all of the things that you don't need to like run an operation. You need to like just be an engineer. And so yeah, I was not going to get like a normal degree anyways, and so dropping out made sense. And was already running my business at the time. I think people who criticize people who drop out of school are just looking for something to complain about. Like, if you like what is school if not like go to the class? Like, school is like you're the output for you. Like, anyone who says anything else is just lying. Like, the degree doesn't have any value. It's like, if I need to learn a skill like negotiations and I go to class and learn that skill, cool. If the school is going to force me to take marketing 101 and like intro to accounting when I've been running my books for 2 years, like that's entirely nonsensical. Like, anyone who says I should be going to those classes is like not intelligent. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And so, yeah, I think dropping out of school, if the educational experience is not useful to you, you should not go to school. Like, that's Peter Thiel's entire thesis with the Thiel Fellowship. And if you look at the track record, like, you cannot say he's not correct. Like, Dylan Field with Figma, and like Vitalik with Ethereum, and like Lucy Guo with Scale, and like all these things. And so it's like, I don't know. People can have their opinions, but I don't know. There's so many people who became successful and were able to focus their time when they dropped out of school who aren't Thiel Fellows. And I think that's very valid. I also think, like, especially with the pace at which technology is advancing, you can't afford to not focus, and execute, because building something right now versus building something 2 years from now, like after you graduate, is just like a completely different opportunity field, in my opinion. There are some people who need school. There was a Thiel Fellow in my class, Erin Smith, who took the first year of the fellowship and then didn't take the second half of the money because she went back to school because her work was implicitly connected to university research. And like, that was her thing. She realized like completely stepping out of university affiliation did not serve what she was building. And like, that's okay too. So like, one path doesn't really fit everyone based on what you're building. And so it's like the hardest question of life as humans is like, what do you want to build? What do you need to build that? You should know all of those answers on your own. And then you should know, like, does class serve me? Like, does, like, some people, instead of going the full entrepreneurship route, they'll go intern for like the biggest person in their industry and learn 10x what they would learn in school because they have access to like boots on the ground industry actions and like all the internal learnings of that company. And so I think school is great because it's like when people like don't have a path or like want a good foundation, it's there. But depending upon where you want to go in life and what you want in life, it could be like I also met someone who messaged one of her idols. I don't know if you guys know Blake Lively and Jesse Ipser. They're this company. He does the big year calendar, some sort of, yeah. Yeah, the like doing something exceptional once a year, and Blake Lively founded Spanx, and she's like a billionaire, very successful. She messaged them and was like, "Hey, can I work for you guys? I'm a, up and coming entrepreneur. I want to learn from people who are like in it." And they were like, she wanted to get into his program for free, pretty much. And he was like, "Oh, like you're so ambitious. You're very smart," similar to like how she would present herself for the Thiel Fellowship. And the two of them were like, "Why don't you come live with us and work for us and like see us in our everyday lives doing our thing?" Which is like, what an insane opportunity. And I think making those kind of asks and like opening those kind of doors is way easier when like you're young and hungry and have all this potential than when you're like old like me. Just kidding. But like someday we just keep getting older. It's crazy. All right, yeah.
Just curious, do you know someone named Blake Resnick?
I don't think so. Oh, cool. Yeah. I know a lot of them, but not all of them well. I'm told that I'm the Thiel Fellow that knows the most Thiel Fellows, but that's just because I lived in Wisconsin. And so anytime I went to New York, I would just like live with people in their homes. And anytime I went to SF, I would literally just invade people's lives. So I know a lot of them really well, but I do not think I know Blake well. And if this is on record, is this still recording or is it not? Okay. I hope that I don't know him and then say I don't know him and he's like, "Oh man, obviously Meghan hates me." That would be embarrassing. But yeah. So I think the biggest like Thiel Fellowship literally changed my life probably more than anything. I personally think it's like the one opportunity. Like if I didn't do it, I would still be in Wisconsin, probably working somewhere boring and, not running my own life the way that I am now. But I think if you can identify what you need and like follow a unique path, you can get that same thing in a million different ways, which is cool. Yes, cool. Any other questions? Nice. Anyway, thanks for letting me jump up here for a second.